Happy holidays, Daddy!
Welcome back. Does Jim Bakker deserve a second chance? Some people don't even think his return would be a second chance. We'll introduce you to a man who says that in just a moment. But first, I want to start with this fact. Doug from Kentucky sent this. He said, Bakker, Swaggart, and the rest are outlaws. Their cults ask for pledges only to enhance the glass cathedral. Once out, always out. Susan from Pennsylvania joins us now on the telephone. Susan, I understand that you agree with Doug.
Well, I, for one, am appalled at the possibility of Jim Bakker ever achieving a television ministry again. And my question to any one of your panelists is, why were there not sanctions placed on him by the court to prevent him from misusing the airways again in the future ever?
Well, it's pretty difficult.
Okay, Stephen, yeah?
Can I answer, Susan?
I understand it's difficult because of the First Amendment rights,
right.
But didn't he prove that he obviously has defrauded his flock and pretty much the American public?
Well, they put some sanctions on him regarding what he can do in terms of fundraising. But he, like any American, is free to use the airwaves as he wants. Some people have suggested that there be some type of legislation regarding television preachers. But the problem is if you start to regulate TV preachers, then you've got to start to regulate others. Jerry Lewis telethon, public television fundraising.
How about convicted TV producers? I mean, how about convicted TV producers?
Well,
convicted.
Once he's a free man, he has the freedom and the rights as the rest of us do.
But isn't he a convicted felon in the past?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. You can't equate Jerry Lewis with Jim Bakker. Jerry Lewis doesn't have a convicted felony on his record.
And yet, you know, Susan, that is the whole concept of our criminal justice system. When you are found guilty and sentenced to a certain amount of years for your crime, you do the time, and then you, in effect, start fresh. So I guess what we're asking is, can somebody of the moral standing of a television evangelist, a preacher, a minister, are they held to different standards, different moral standards? Do they deserve a second chance? Joe Haviland is in our audience today. He's the former president of the PTL Association. And Joe, I understand that you say the term, does he deserve a second chance, doesn't even apply, that's the wrong terminology, right?
I think it is. I don't think Jim was guilty of anything to begin with, you know. If you'd been in the court, you'd have thought that they were trying to try Jesus Christ, and he would have been guilty too in that court. That was the most travesty of justice I ever heard.
So why do you say that? Where did the money go? I mean, because basically what he was convicted of was overselling the partnerships in Heritage USA.
I know what he's convicted of, but they could prove where all the money went. You know, it went for the grounds, it went for other things that was built. It wasn't overspent. If you ever been there, have you been there? Most beautiful place in the world. And Jim done a fabulous job of building it. And Jim always give back for everything that was given to him, he'd give back.
Now, you mentioned that you talked to him on Tuesday. Can you share with us what the conversation was about, what he said?
Yeah, I was talking to Jim on Tuesday. Channel 2 wanted to go up and interview him, and I called Jim, and Jim said he wasn't giving any interviews at the time. And he said that he has been restricted from preaching on television or anything at this present time, so that's why he wasn't giving any interviews.
I understand that. Now, several people have some concern about whether or not he's allowed to preach on television, whether or not he's just allowed to ask fundraising. Art Harris, I'm going to turn to you and see if you can kind of clarify a little bit of that, and then we'll get back to, does he deserve a second chance? Can you clarify some of that?
I think he is barred from TV fundraising at this point as part of the deal. However, I have to take issue with Joe because I sat in and covered the trial for the Washington Post, and it was really sad to watch elderly ladies who had sent their $1,000 in, who thought they would have a place to retire, only to find out that Jim Bakker had spent their money on Rolls Royces, on a lavish lifestyle, on things that, for his own life, that they were now not going to be able to enjoy their retirement over.
What about that, Joe? I mean, we've all heard the stories, the air-conditioned doghouse, the gold-plated bathroom fixtures, The lavish vacations, the clothes.
Start with the air-conditioned doghouse. I wouldn't even put my dog in it. It was that piece of junk, you know. And everybody...
Joe, most people don't even have a junky air-conditioned doghouse for their dog.
Well, it just wasn't that great of a thing, you know.
Okay, Chris
Susan,
in New York joins us on the telephone. Chris, go ahead.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
The justice system obviously doesn't work. Anytime a man can go to prison with $158 million in his pocket and only do 5 years, something is wrong. I read an article in the New York Times that all Jim Bakker did in prison was read Howard Stern's book, Private Party.
Oh,
Okay.
that's absolutely false.
Stephen, go ahead and explain. How did it get reduced? It was originally 45 years,
Right.
got reduced to 8, he served 5.
Well, the judge in his sentencing had made some type of religious comments, and they felt that that was biased, and then they appealed, and he got the sentence reduced. But let me say in response to your last caller that Jim Bakker did not sit around reading porno
Well,
magazines
no, actually,
or Howard
no.
Stern.
Stephen, that was a crank
Yeah.
call.
Okay.
We get him occasionally. It's like this on live
He
television.
read a
That's
lot of
okay.
religious material. He had people sending him books. He was on magazine lists. I would say that Jim Bakker's...
2,000 people sent him letters a day or a week?
A week.
A
Yeah.
week. That's an awful lot of mail. Were they mostly positive letters, or were they
Yes,
negative?
When I was there, he told me he was getting about 600 letters a day, up to 3,000 a week. Now, all of those letters are opened and inspected, so people are not sending him money. They're sending him letters just telling him their concerns, and he would write many of these people back. He would stay up late some nights to write back to these people.
Okay, so what is the future for Jim Bakker and some of his followers? And we are asking you, does he deserve a second chance? You've heard of some of the people in our television audience. We're going to talk to our studio audience right after this.